The reason of removing the intake manifold can be replacing the gasket in case you found that is leaking, replacing the intake manifold itself in case it's cracked and again is leaking the vacuum, or getting access to some other components like the alternator injectors, the oxygen sensor back here, the starter which is down there, AC compressor, and so on. There can be a long list of components which requires the intake manifold to be removed. So let's get into it. First, remove this intake hose. To do that, use a 10mm socket, and you've got a bolt down here which holds the intake on this bracket, like that. You can as well remove the hose from the air filter housing. Pry out these clips. Unplug the connector from the MAP sensor. Unplug these plastic clips from the air filter housing. Just press on these two tabs and then you can pull out the wiring harness. Unplug the connector from the MAP sensor. Unplug the connector from the evaporative control solenoid. With a 10mm, you've got one bolt down here and one down there, which will hold the air filter housing in position. Now if you look down there, there is a 5.5mm bolt. This one is rounded in my situation. I'm going to wiggle the air filter housing out. I can release that hose clamp back here. Now over here on the throttle body, you've got this small metal bracket. You're gonna find the 8mm bolt. Try to not lose the bolts. Here it comes. You can remove this as well, but it's better like that so you remember exactly where it goes. Down here, disconnect the solenoid from the throttle body. Release this hose clamp as well. Twist a little bit the hose and then you're gonna be able to pull it out. Back here, do the same thing. Unplug the connector from the throttle body. Use some sort of pliers to press on that tab. Push out the connector. You've got a lot of hose clamps to remove, so a good idea, if you think that you're gonna be confused when reinstalling them back, is to mark them, like place a green spot here and one green spot here, and then a white spot here and one spot here. There is one more coolant hose. This is the inlet coolant hose. Again, release the hose clamp. It might have some coolant in it, so be prepared with some paper towel around it. Next, with a 12mm socket, you've got 4 bolts, 2 up here and 2 down here. Especially on the last bolt, try to hold the throttle body and the bracket behind. Finally, the throttle body is out together with all the hoses and the brackets and the bolts. Now back here, there are 2 10mm bolts. Undo those as well. Basically, this intake manifold is made by 2 pieces, so this is the point where the plastic part connects with the metal part. There are just 5 bolts, 12mm socket. From this point, make sure that you don't lean your weight on this part. Once all the bolts are out, this metal bracket comes out as well. Release this hose. And back here, you've got the brake booster vacuum line. Release it like that, and the first part of the intake is out. Alright, you'll have to remove this wiring harness. There is a 10mm bolt down here. Remove as well the dipstick in order to make more space, and instead of the dipstick I'm going to insert a bolt in order to prevent debris going in there. So I'm going to start with the most difficult to access bolt, which is located down there in between the alternator and the intake manifold. It's a 12mm bolt, so I'm going to aim for that bolt first. Put my wrench in here, so let's see. I can feel it with my finger. Here we go. 2 more down here. So over here we've got actually a nut, and 1 more down here. And finally, if you look down there, you've got 1 more, the last one. Since the last 2 are nuts, in order to not lose them under the engine, I'm going to catch them before they come out with a magnet, just like that, easy and safe. So now unplug the connector from the AGR valve. Now you can actually get access to the gasket. You don't have to remove actually the injectors. Yeah, from this point you can easily change the gasket of the intake manifold. And if you want to remove the second part of the intake, I'm going to show you in a minute. As you can see down there, there is a yellow hose, basically a yellow check valve. You can twist it and pull it out like that. And now this second part of the intake comes out. Now if you look on this part of the intake, there is something very interesting to mention here. As you can see on this gasket, you've got this long port which basically fits with this indentation into the intake. You can see down here this little hole. It connects to this PCV hose with a PCV valve. And when you place the gasket and of course tight it, you will get these 4 points on each cylinder. And through these points, all the blow-by gases from the piston rings will travel into the cylinders to be reburned. That's thanks to this valve. Therefore, this is the second PCV hose which this engine has. Another one is down here and is connected directly to the throttle body. Alright, with that being said, now it's time to clean up this area. Insert the new gasket on. Alright, in order to install back this PCV valve, you gotta take it out first, install it into the engine, and it's going to be easier to reconnect the hose rather than connecting the whole valve into the engine. I think I've got the valve in there. Here we go. PCV valve is secured. So from this point, the installation is the reverse process of removing it. I'm not gonna show it to you because I know from the past videos you guys are not gonna watch it, so maybe I will tell you some critical points where you need to know something special. For the nuts, just place them on the socket and match it directly with the bolt. When you torque this, try to do it in a crisscross pattern. Install first the brake booster hose. These gaskets are reusable, you don't need to replace them, so that you know. So yes guys, job done, everything is in place. It was very interesting to see how this intake manifold was designed. If you also enjoyed watching, give this video a thumbs up, and until next time, take care, so I can see you in the next video.